All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about the AI fintech revolution. Now, this is a space that is absolutely buzzing with opportunity, but let's be honest, it can feel like you can't possibly compete with the giants. So today, we're going to break down a very specific strategy, how to find and completely dominate a niche, turning what looks like a crowded market into your own personal gold rush. And we're going to start with the sheer size of the prize.
So first off, just look at this number. The AI fintech market is on track to hit over $53 billion by 2030. That's not just growth, that is an explosion. It tells you that a massive wave of innovation and investment is already here. But honestly, that huge number isn't even the most interesting part. What's really revealing is how much of that pie is still completely up for grabs.
And here it is. This is the crucial point. Despite all that insane growth and all that money pouring in, fintechs have only managed to capture a tiny 3% of global banking revenue. Now, this isn't a story of failure. No, this is a massive opportunity gap. It tells us that the incumbents, the big traditional players, are leaving a truly enormous amount of value just sitting on the table.
So let's just call this what it is, the $50 billion opportunity gap. And the reason this gap even exists, it's actually pretty simple. The biggest players, for all their money and resources, are basically trapped. They're stuck with ancient infrastructure and a culture that just can't move quickly. They are battleships trying to turn in a tiny canal, while a startup can be a speedboat zipping right past them.
You listen to the big banks and the payment processors on their earnings calls, and they will not stop talking about AI. It is the buzzword of the decade. But here's the reality check. Their old, tangled systems make it incredibly difficult for them to launch practical agent AI solutions. And by that I mean AI that can actually do things and solve modern problems. They can talk a great game, but they really struggle to ship real products. And that right there is where you come in.
Okay, so if the giants are stuck in the mud, where do we find the treasure? Well, this next section, this is our map. We are going to pinpoint the specific, high-value corners of the market where a nimble startup can not only compete, but can absolutely win.
First up, payments. A new way of AI agents can now actually perform actions, not just analyze data. And this creates some incredible openings. For instance, what about building API-first platforms so these AI agents can securely authenticate and pay each other? Or you could be the one to finally crack the micropayments problem. Traditional fees make tiny transactions impossible, but AI-to-AI services in gaming desperately need them. And finally, take a look at cross-border payments. With 71% stablecoin adoption in Latin America alone, the demand for faster, cheaper ways to move money is screamingly obvious.
Now for our second treasure trove, just let this number sink in. $12.5 billion. That is the cost of financial fraud this year alone, and it's a 25% jump from last year. This is a staggering, painful problem that businesses are absolutely desperate to solve.
And the reason fraud is exploding? It's because the old way of fighting it just doesn't work anymore. Traditional rule-based systems are slow, they're clunky, and they generate 30% more false positives, which means they're constantly annoying your actual good customers. AI-driven systems, on the other hand, they use behavioral analysis, they learn in real time, and they're just way more accurate. The difference is night and day.
And look, this isn't just some theoretical advantage. The market is already voting with its wallet. Investors are pouring money into AI risk platforms. A company like Sardine, which is focused on this exact problem, has already hit a valuation of $680 million. That proves that solving this fraud problem isn't just a good idea, it's an incredibly valuable one. All right, our final treasure isn't a single area, but a whole strategy. Go deep, not wide. Vertical-specific solutions almost always win. In healthcare, AI is totally changing clinical documentation. In legal, automating research creates these incredibly sticky products because, well, the switching costs are huge. And in manufacturing, predictive maintenance AI is already seeing 40% adoption. You could build a massive company in any one of these areas.
Okay, so we have our map. We know where the gold is buried. Now let's shift gears and talk about the playbook. How do you actually build a lean, capital-efficient company to go out there and capture one of these niches? The absolute key here is to avoid building some giant monolith from day one. Instead, you use a stackable model. You start by solving one core problem with a simple subscription. Once you've got that foothold, you start layering on new value, like API access for developers, then maybe a marketplace, and finally, premium data products. See how it works?
Each layer is built on the success of the last, which increases your value while you systematically build a competitive moat around your business.
And this focus, it also gives you this huge go-to-market advantage. I mean, trying to sell a general B2B product means your customer acquisition cost is, on average, over $700. But when you focus on a micro niche, you can do direct outreach, you can build a real community, and you slash that cost to a fraction of the price. It's just a fundamentally more efficient way to grow.
So we have the map and we have the playbook. The final piece of the puzzle is, of course, execution. This is where so many promising startups just fall apart. Not because the idea was bad, but because they overlooked some critical, non-negotiable rules of the game.
If you remember one single thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. In fintech, growth cannot compromise compliance. It is the single most important rule. You can have the most brilliant, innovative product in the world, but if you cut corners on regulation, you are building your entire company on sand.
And for anyone who thinks that's an exaggeration, let's just look at the cautionary tale of Synapse, okay? This was a major player. They served over 100 fintech companies and 10 million end users, and they filed for bankruptcy. Why? It all came down to one thing. Regulatory non-compliance caused their partner banks to cut them off. The lesson is brutal, and it is crystal clear. Your tech innovation is worthless without a rock-solid foundation of compliance.
So what does that actually look like in practice? It means dedicating a full quarter, 25% of your resources to compliance and partnerships. Just look at this allocation. It is the second largest slice of the pie right after product development itself. It's not an afterthought you deal with later. It is a core business function that have to be funded and prioritized from day one.
And look, staying capital efficient means being absolutely ruthless about what you build versus what you buy or partner for. You should partner for the complex, commoditized stuff. Payment processing, core banking services, regulatory tools. Focus your precious in-house resources only on the things that make you special. Your core user experience, your proprietary algorithms, and your customer relationships. That's your unique value.
So there you have it. The opportunity is absolutely immense. The path is clear and the playbook is proven. The giants have left the door wide open. So the only real question left is this. With the map in your hand, which niche will you go out and conquer?